Hi, David Healy here with you. I want to introduce you to a new sample library. This one's for Kontakt 4.2 and above. It's called O'Malley's Irish Whistles, and it's a collection of Irish whistles. We have a low D whistle, a standard D whistle, a B flat whistle, a C whistle, and an effects patch, which we'll look at later on. So in this quick video, I'd just like to walk you through the interface and give you a few examples of the sounds of this library. So let's just start off with the interface. So we've got on the low D patch we have three articulations. We've got legato, staccato, and overblown staccato. We'll just have a quick listen to them. So the legato is also your sustain. We've got staccato. And overblown staccato. So this is like staccato but with a bit more air pressure behind it. Now you can select these articulations by clicking the buttons on the interface, and you can also use the key switches down here on the keyboard, the red keys, and they change to they'll be coloured black if it's a white key and white if it's a black key when the articulation is selected. You can change which key is assigned to an articulation using these drop-down menus, and each key can only be assigned to one articulation at a time. So you can see staccato is assigned to C sharp 0. If I try and apply that to the legato, C sharp 0 there, it's just going to reset it back to C0 because it knows that C sharp 0 is already assigned. You can also assign key switches using a MIDI learn feature. If you hold Alt on your computer keyboard and click on one of these articulation buttons, I've just clicked on legato there, and then play a key or press one on the Kontakt's keyboard, it will assign the key switch to that key. So we'll just reset that back to C0. The other feature we have with these articulations is you can have more than one active at a time. So we'll look at staccato and the overblown staccato for now. If we just select both of them, and the way I did that was I select one of them and I hold Control, and that's Command on a Mac, and click another articulation, and that has both activated at the same time. Now the other way to select multiple articulations, other than holding Control or Command and clicking, is you can use the key switches. Just press more than one at a time and it will select multiple articulations. Now in this case, the way they're triggered is based on these sliders here. These select the velocity range. So currently they're both around 65, so if I play a note below a velocity of 65 we won't hear anything. And then if I play a note that's 65 or greater, we'll hear both of them trigger at once. Now usually you're not going to want it to work like that, where you have silence. If I bring that down to 0, so the range of the staccato is 0 to 127, and the range of the overblown is 64 to 127. So we're just going to hear the staccato when I play softly, and then if I play at a harder velocity we're going to hear both at the same time. Now it's a little different when you have the legato activated and one of the other articulations, in that you're probably going to want your legato always to be 0 to 127, but if you play and release quickly, you're only going to hear the staccato sample trigger. And I'm going to bring this range down as well so we always get the staccato. So you're only hearing the staccato trigger. But if you hold it down, it's going to cross-fade from that staccato into the sustain sample. And that means you're able to switch between sustain and staccato without having to trigger a key switch. You can do it just based on velocity and the length of time that you're holding a key down for. Now, if you're playing a legato phrase, you're not going to want that a fresh attack on each note of the legato. You're going to want the legato transition between. So that's how it's set up. When you have legato and one of the shorter articulations enabled at the same time, it's going to only play the short articulation at the beginning of each new legato phrase, and in between you'll get the nice smooth transitions. Now on most instruments that have a legato articulation, you usually see a separate sustain key switch as well, but we did something a little different. You just have this legato, and it's kind of a smart legato. It'll detect when you're playing polyphonically and switch over to sustain automatically. So that's a more intuitive way to switch articulations, and again we're trying to avoid you having to trigger key switches. Now this works whether you're playing live or sequencing your music, and it just takes a bit of the burden off you to have to switch articulations when we can get the computer to do it for us. The other good feature of this legato is we have a legato re-trigger, so that means when you press a note and then hold it down and press and release another note, you can create trills and cuts and other ornaments. And if you're doing trills, you can do them over any interval, and because you're playing them live, you can control the speed as well. And the round robin's included in that as well, so we'll look at the round robin in a moment, but we have a round robin system, so that's taken into account with the re-trigger, so you're not going to just get a machine gun effect with that. Okay, let's look at the round robin. So that's this button here, and it's got several modes. We've got off, sim, which is simulated, that's where it's borrowing samples that are adjacent to the note you're playing and retuning them. We've got group, this is your real round robin, so for the legatos we've got 2, and for the staccatos we have 4 round robins. Let's just listen to them. So this is the legato, and the staccato. And actually, let's just have a listen to the simulated version. That's with the sample borrowing. And then we've also got this mode called hybrid, which uses both the group version, the true round robin, and the simulated to give you the maximum amount of variations. It also throws in a little bit of random micro tuning just to try and get every note as unique as possible. You can activate this button by clicking on it on the interface, and you've also got this key switch here, currently set to E0, which is green when the round robin is off, and when we click that to activate it, it turns blue, and it'll just go through the different modes and then go back to off. You can change this key switch by holding Alt on your computer keyboard, clicking on the button, and then clicking another key. I'll just reset that back to where it was. Now this next button here, this is for the sustain pedal. So if you don't have a sustain pedal, you can activate this button using this key switch here, currently set to F0, and again it can be reassigned by holding Alt and clicking the button and selecting a new key switch. And now I'm controlling that button using my sustain pedal. So the sustain pedal plays a few different roles. You can have it just hold a legato note until the pedal's released. Now the main purpose of that, other than the standard holding a note, is that if you want to play the same note multiple times, and instead of having a fresh attack on each note, you want a legato transition. So this is same note legato transitions. So you hold that down and then you can play the same note multiple times and you won't get a re-trigger of the attack. And now without. Now the other use for the sustain pedal is for performing glides and slides and bends between notes up to a whole tone apart. Now this isn't like using the pitch wheel, this will actually use the samples within the glide, so you get a formant correct glide. And it works that while you've got the sustain pedal active and you play one note and hold down another, so playing legato essentially in an overlapped fashion, it will do a slide between the two notes. And again, it's playing both the first and last sample and the one in between and doing the slide between all of them. The speed of the slide is controlled in two ways. And we've got this glide time slider here. Now if you set that to the minimum value, so it's off, the slide time is going to be controlled by velocity. So if you play a harder velocity, it's going to be a shorter glide time, and if you play a softer velocity, it's going to be a longer glide time. And you'll see this little slider jump up based on the velocity we're playing. So I'll play a slow one first of all. So you can see the glide time jumped up to the maximum, and now I'm going to play the velocity a little harder. The glide also has the re-trigger feature. It's not designed for re-triggering, it's just a kind of nice side effect of the way it's scripted. So this brings us down to these sliders down here. So these are all controlled by MIDI CCs, so you've got vibrato amount and vibrato rate. And you can control these with the mouse, or more likely you're going to want to control these using a continuous controller. And you can select which controller controls them here. So I've got this set up to my expression pedal for vibrato amount and vibrato rate. We could make them independent and have the mod wheel control the amount, and the expression pedal control the rate. And it's the same, we've got expression and we've got glide time, which we've looked at already. Now the Irish whistle doesn't really have much dynamic range per note, so the expression is in there to allow you to add volume control more as a mixing tool. On the real instrument you have a tiny bit of volume control with some of the notes, but generally the volume is based on where you're playing, so the lower notes are much softer than the higher notes, and the higher notes are quite piercing, especially on the standard D whistle. Okay, so the last thing to look at in sort of interacting with this instrument is the pitch bend. Generally I use the pitch bend for the start of phrases. But if you want to do a bend in the middle of a phrase, the pitch bend wheel isn't as good, because you've first got to dip down or go up to the note above before you can bend into the note. So that's when you'd switch to the glide. So for mid-phrase bends, you're probably going to want to use the glide feature. I'll just show you what it would sound like if I was using the pitch wheel, and then I'll do it with the sustain pedal. And now with the sustain pedal for the mid-phrase bend. So for the most realistic performance, you're going to be using a combination of those two tools for doing bends and glides and slides. Okay, so that pretty much sums it up for the interface, and the other instruments in this library all use the same interface except for the effects patch, which we'll look at in a moment. But let's just have a quick look at the D whistle. So this is pitched one octave higher than the low D whistle, but you can see it's exactly the same layout. We've got legato and staccato. We don't have the overblown staccato, that's only for the low D whistle. But apart from that, everything else is the same. We've got the control over the sliders, we've got the round robin, and that's all exactly the same. It's just the sound is different, just different set of samples. And finally, let's look at the effects patch. So this is called breaths and taps. I'm going to turn the volume up here a little bit. So we've got breath noises. These were taken from the recording session. We actually just cut out the player's breath noises and built this patch with them. And this patch responds to CC11 as well for expression. And then we've got some taps. This is the sound of the musician's fingers tapping against the holes on the instrument. And they're quite useful for creating percussive or rhythmic elements, and they can be useful for adding a little bit of realism if you're doing a really close mic'd sound. As well as responding to expression, this patch also responds to velocity, so a low velocity gives you a quieter sound, and a high velocity a much louder sound. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video informative. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link to the product page, O'Malley's Irish Whistles, beneath the video in the description. You can get the library at xtant-audio.com. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below the video on YouTube. And if you buy the product and you like it, please leave a review on the website, and that helps let other people know your experiences of it and what they can expect. Alright, thank you very much guys, and I'll see you next time.